Welcome to Reddit Revenge, fairness served daily. I used to believe a marriage could survive anything, until I watched mine rot from the inside. We started as the couple friends whispered about. Adventurous, rule-making, rule-breaking. Swinging, yes, but with boundaries, check-ins, consent. When our oldest needed stability and my gut started screaming, I said, I'm done. I want us, only us. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said she was done too. Then she went underground. 13 men, 2 women, a rotation of secret meetups while I paid mortgages and packed school lunches. I kept finding odd hours on her calendar. Unexplained Uber charges. Perfume that wasn't hers or mine. Every lie was a thread pulled from a sweater I kept insisting I could mend. Meanwhile, our kids thought mom was just busy. I told myself the same. Denial is comfortable right until it suffocates you. The night I confronted her, she stared through me like a stranger and said, You used to be fun. Something inside me went quiet. I could survive betrayal, I told myself. People do it every day. What I didn't know was that betrayal was only the first wave. The real storm was already forming over my children. And when it hit, it would force me to become the kind of father who doesn't just endure, he fights. And once I started fighting, I wasn't going to stop. I just didn't realize how fast the clock was ticking, or how much damage she could do before dawn. The next call we got from the hospital would make everything else feel small, and it would expose who she really was when life demanded more than a party face. That's where this story truly begins. 6 months before the divorce, a doctor said words I still hear at 3 a.m. Our oldest had a life-threatening condition, tests, scans, a treatment plan that read like a war map. Overnight, my calendar morphed into alarms. Meds at 6, labs at 8, insurance at lunch, hydrate, rest, repeat. I switched shifts, learned to read lab values, slept in chairs. That's when my wife started disappearing. Not physically at first, emotionally. She reacted to pressure the way a bridge with bad bolts does. She shook, then cracked. Wine with dinner turned into liquor in coffee mugs. She missed doses. She missed pickups. She drove when she shouldn't have, and the car came home with a new dent she couldn't explain. The night I found her passed out with the front door unlocked and cartoons still playing, something primal lit up in me. I packed bags, scooped the kids from their beds, and carried them into the dark like I was evacuating a fire. For 2 weeks we lived on a friend's lumpy pullout, the kids breathing against my shirt while hospital machines beeped in my memory. I told myself space might jolt her sober. Instead, a different jolt arrived. Her best friend, call her Amy, texted, Can you talk? It's about the kids. We met in her lemon-cleaned kitchen. She didn't make small talk. She told us everything at girls' night, Amy said, sliding her phone across the table. What I read made my teeth ache, and the video she hit play on made my stomach drop through the floor. Amy didn't come to gossip. She came to confess. She thinks it's funny, Amy said, voice flat. On the screen were texts of my wife bragging. A new guy practically every night, blackout drunk with the kids upstairs, a quick meetup where she left our 3- and 4-year-olds sleeping alone because, what are the odds they wake? I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles blanched. Amy kept going. She's planning to drain you, then file. She said living rent-free is her favorite kink. Something inside me switched from hurt to operational. Grief fog lifted, and gears started turning. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to document. We laid out a plan on scrap paper. Move back home. Force proximity so patterns show. Record everything, verbal abuse, threats, neglect. Lock down finances. No more blank checks for chaos. And, if she spiraled, make sure help was offered and proof retained. You're not alone, Amy said, sliding a spare key across the table. I'm done covering for her. I nodded, pocketed the key, and felt a steadiness I hadn't felt in months. If she wanted a war, it would be fought in daylight. The next morning, I carried my duffel into our bedroom and sat on the bed beside her. The look she gave me could have curdled milk. I hit record in my sock. We need to talk about the kids, I said. She smiled like a shark. We're going to talk about you. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. An omen I didn't yet understand. By nightfall, blue lights would paint our walls, and only one of us would be going to jail. Spoiler, it wasn't me. The script she chose was familiar. Play scared, call 911, weaponize the presumption that men are fists before their fathers. She got in my face, poked my chest, hissed that I was trespassing in her house. I kept my hands at my sides and my voice low. It's our home. The kids sleep here. She dialed anyway. By the time the cruisers turned the corner, she had tears on her cheeks and a story preloaded. I was raging. I wouldn't leave. She feared for her life. They cuffed me on the driveway while my kids peered through the blinds. In the back seat, the detective asked, almost bored, if I had anything to say. Yes, I said. I told him about the recorder in my sock. He listened to her threats, her laughter, the rehearsed lines she'd planned to feed him. His posture changed. He stepped out, walked to the porch, and asked her to repeat her statement, this time on his phone. She stumbled over details. He pressed play on my audio. The porch went very quiet. Then he asked her about leaving the kids alone, about drinking, about the dented car. She snapped, called him names, called me names, told the universe it owed her. When the door of the cruiser opened again, it wasn't for me. They uncuffed my wrists, apologized to the kids, and put her in the back. As the taillights disappeared, the house felt huge and hollow. I tucked my children into bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the refrigerator hum and wondering how much lower she could go. The answer would arrive before the week was out. With a temporary restraining order served, she crashed at Amy's guest room, a mercy I didn't deserve but accepted for the kids' sake. If Rock Bottom had a soundtrack, hers was the cha-ching of our joint accounts. Within 72 hours, she'd bought a new laptop, a top-tier iPhone at full retail, salon appointments, and a wardrobe loud enough to need its own spotlight. Amy's texts pinged, photos of receipts, timestamps, then a 20-minute video she recorded after a heavy thud. On screen, my wife swayed, slurred, vomited, then lost control of more than her temper. It wasn't shame porn. It was proof. A person unfit to be alone with two small children. I didn't wait to see the overdraft. I met with the bank manager, moved our savings to a new account in my name only, closed joint credit cards, and shut off overdraft protection so she couldn't light a financial wildfire and leave me holding the hose. By the time she tried to buy a second pair of designer boots, her card declined. She raged to Amy about theft. Amy, done picking sides, pressed record again. Later that night she texted, "She's talking about hurting herself. My hatred for what my wife had done didn't erase my obligation to keep her alive. For our kids, if not for her." Amy and I made a plan for the next morning. One that would save lives and, yes, reshape the courtroom. We agreed on words, on who would drive, on which hospital had beds. I charged the kids' tablets, packed snacks, and set my alarm for before dawn. When the sun found our windows, we'd be moving. Her toward help, me toward the kind of evidence that doesn't just speak in court. It silences lies. The intake nurse didn't blink at the story. She'd heard 100 like it that month. Amy did most of the talking while my wife stared at a scuffed tile, pale and shaking. When the forms were signed and a bracelet cinched around her wrist, I exhaled for the first time in months. Help isn't a punishment. It's proof someone is finally taking their own danger seriously. I thanked Amy in the parking lot. Then I drove straight to a law office that smelled like paper and resolve. I slid a stack across the desk. Audio files, videos, statements, medical notes, the bank ledger that looked like a heist. My attorney skimmed, then slowed, then looked up. "We file today," he said. "Emergency custody. Protective orders. A motion to freeze joint assets and formalize what I'd done at the bank." He explained the order of battle, where the judge's questions would land, how we'd keep the kids' names off public dockets. We served her while she was still inpatient, not to humiliate her, but to start a clock the children couldn't afford to wait on. 2 weeks to the hearing. 2 weeks to test whether truth can beat performance. Each night until then I reread everything, added dates, cross-checked timestamps, and said out loud to an empty room, "You are not crazy. This happened." The mirror believed me. Now I needed a judge to. I practiced answers in the shower, In the car, over the stove where mac and cheese bubbled like a small golden promise. When doubt tried to creep in, what if the court bought her tears? I played Amy's video, then the 911 rehearsal. Facts are a rope. I wrapped them around my fear and pulled. The courthouse hallway smelled like coffee and floor wax and nerves. She arrived looking like repentance in a blouse. Soft colors, pearl studs, a Bible study smile. Her lawyer opened with a hymn about adversity and mental health, the kind that sprinkles truth over a lie. She took the stand and cried about my rage, about months of intimidation, about how she'd checked herself into the hospital because she feared what I might do. The judge listened, patient as a metronome. My attorney scribbled something that looked like calm. When it was his turn, he didn't thunder. He stacked. First, the audio, her threats, her instructions to herself on what to tell 911. The glee in her voice when she thought the script would end with me in a cell. Then bank records. Timestamps from the spree, the overdraft attempt, the blocked transactions. Then the video. 20 unbroken minutes that smelled like alcohol even from a courtroom screen. A murmur rippled through the benches. The judge's pen stopped. My wife stared at the table like it might open and swallow her whole. We weren't done. Call Amy, my attorney said, and the best friend she'd taken for granted walked to the stand and took an oath. She didn't look at my wife. She looked at the judge. In a voice that didn't shake, Amy described the girls' night boasts. The kids left sleeping alone. The plan to bleed me dry. My wife's mouth fell open, but no sound came out. The judge leaned forward. Anything else? He asked. Amy nodded once. Yes, Your Honor. And what she said next pulled the last mask off my ex, for good. Amy told the court about the night my wife left our toddlers sleeping while she met a guy for one drink. She produced the text where my wife wrote, "They'll never wake up, relax." She recounted cleaning vomit, hearing the slur that I was good for money and nothing else. The threats to weaponize police if I ever came home again. When Amy stepped down, the room felt colder. My wife's attorney tried to rehabilitate her with talk of treatment and second chances. But facts are stubborn bricks. You can't build a new story with them once they've been mortared into place. The judge asked a few clean questions. Who handles meds? Who attends appointments? Who secured the finances when accounts began to drain? My answers were short, documented, boring in the way safety often is. Then came the ruling, each word landing like a gavel of its own. Sole legal and physical custody to me. Supervised visitation for her. Contingent on verified rehab, negative tests, and proof of ongoing therapy. The restraining order extended. The house awarded to me after an equity payment. Financial accounts preserved. Paperwork slid across oak. Signatures scratched. My wife stared at the judge as if disbelief might turn back time. Outside, in the glare of noon, she spat that I'd stolen her life. I looked at our children buckled in the back seat and thought, no, I've returned yours. But the real test wasn't the order. It was the years that would follow, when consistency matters more than any single win. And those years were coming fast. 5 years is a long time to measure in appointments and homework and quiet victories. Our oldest numbers crept from red into amber, then, blessedly, into green. We learned every nurse's name and retired them like jerseys as visits grew further apart. Birthdays happened on time. Bedtimes happened on time. Laughter returned like birds after a storm. Their mother existed at the edges. Supervised visits in a bright room with soft chairs and a clock that moved too loudly. Some days she showed up early with clear eyes and snacks labeled for allergens. Those days, the kids came home hopeful and I sent a thank you through the coordinator. Other days she canceled an hour before, and I learned not to promise what isn't mine to control. I don't root for her to fail. I root for my children to be safe, and for their future selves to know that every adult around them chose the hard, boring work of protection over the easy chaos of denial. I kept records not because I planned more battles, but because sobriety is a staircase and courts like to see footprints on each step. When holidays came, we kept them gentle, morning here, a video call there. The kids asked fewer why questions and more what now ones. The truth is simple. I stopped trying to fix their mother. I fixed the parts of the world I could reach. That isn't glamorous, but it's how a house becomes a home again. On the anniversary of the ruling, we baked a cake shaped like a key. "What's it for?" my youngest asked. "For doors that stay locked at night," I said. "Because everyone we love is inside." I blew out the candle and made a wish I could finally name. In the end, there was no cinematic finale, no fireworks, no crowd. Just a dad who kept showing up and a house that learned to be quiet again. I didn't beat my ex. I outlasted the chaos. The court didn't give me victory. It gave my kids a map away from harm and toward ordinary life, which is rarer than it sounds. These days, revenge looks like packed lunches and field trip permission slips, like a front porch light that means safety instead of stage lighting for another fight. Their mother is not my enemy or my responsibility anymore. She's a boundary with a name. When she climbs a step, we acknowledge it. When she slips, we tighten the net beneath our kids and keep walking. The past doesn't own this house. Bedtime stories do. School projects do. Saturday pancakes do. That's my closure, and it's intentionally quiet, because peace that needs applause isn't peace. It's PR. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought in court the same way, or just walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. And share this video with someone who loves a good revenge story. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp. And if you're in the middle of your own storm, here's the one thing I learned the hard way. Document everything, protect the kids first, and let the facts do the heavy lifting. Anger burns fast. Consistency moves mountains. We chose the mountain.